also worked on it, but I have a contract here, Resolution 0974. I submitted this to council in the past, and this is Scott DeLute's contract. And that was, he was being paid at $75 an hour, and he would be working an estimated number of hours of work at 100 hours. I'm going to submit this, and also then in March 8th of 2011, Lee Mueller was hired. And I was on the Planning Commission along with Mr. Williams, Mr. Biondo, and in 2015, we completed the zoning ordinance, and it was ready to go to council and go to the county for approval. And that never happened. And I know that Mr. Wilden stated that he had been given by Mr. Mueller the zoning map. And that was in 2010, I believe.
Directly given, I've never talked to Lee Mueller. I just received
A box. And I believe that box that you received was a box that was given to Donna Meyer, who was a secretary at the time. And that box was from, I believe, Ed Deal. Okay. This is actually off your website at www.monroeville.pa.us docs, and it has the rest of the web address. And this is dated, was given to me on February 13th of 2015. And on here, you'll see the landfill, if you could zero in on this. Let me see what we can do. And this is the zoning map that went along with that completed zoning ordinance in 2015. And if you look at this area of the landfill that you want to rezone, and you go up here to the future land use key, that is landfill/reclaimed recreation. That was to be a recreation area there. That was never to be anything to do with drilling. So I'm going to submit all of this to you. And then now here we go to strategic solutions to the tune of $27,584. So if you add up all this money spent, honestly, it's a sin. And I'll submit this to you, and I want to read to you an article. I said before, you should never let somebody outside our community come in here and tell us how we want to live or should live in our community or what we should have here. I know Lois asked a question. Her question wasn't answered as to who was behind it. Same with Dave Mintz. And, you know, you may not have to answer that question, but I'm going to propose a question to you after I read this article. This article was from July 29th of 2010. Monroeville Company at the center of a deadly local gas well explosion. Monroeville-based Huntley & Huntley is at the center of an Indiana Township gas well explosion Friday that killed 2 workers and ignited a fire that burned for 10 hours before being extinguished. At least 3 other workers were at the site when the explosion occurred, but they were not injured. Huntley & Huntley, located at 4075 Monroeville Boulevard, owns the shallow well, which has produced natural gas since it was drilled 2 years ago. The well is 3,500 feet deep. Huntley & Huntley President Keith Mangini said subcontractors were performing routine maintenance work on one of the 2 oil storage tanks at the site when the blast occurred. Humphrey said the workers had been welding. Mangini said Huntley & Huntley was cooperating with the investigation, including DEP and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The company has more than 350 wells in the region. DEP has cited Huntley & Huntley for 4 violations since 1998. The company was cited twice but not fined in February of 2000 for failure to submit an annual production report. It was cited twice, fined $8,425 for unspecified violations in November of 1998. None of its wells in Indiana Township received DEP permits prior to 2004. I can
You can submit that for the record.
I can I can submit this, and I can submit this, but before I stop, I'd like to ask if each one of you would be willing to state for the record
We're not gonna do that, so you just finish up your.
that not you or any members of your family will benefit from the changing of this ordinance. And I'd also like to just say, Mayor, if you give me another minute, that,
We wanna really have other people. to
no,
speak.
you don't have to answer to me, but sooner or later, you will have to answer to God for anything you do that would harm this community or anybody in it. And I'd just like to read this to you.
No, we're not gonna do that. Your time is up.
Oh, okay, okay, well, I'll be back on Tuesday.
You're welcome to come back.
Be back on Tuesday.
We'll have a 75-minute time.
And maybe I should submit this on Tuesday? I've submitted it before, but
What's that?
I've submitted this before.
If you wanted to go into this public hearing, I would encourage you to submit it now.
Okay, well, I,
But then you have until next Friday to submit all that.
right, thank you.
Next speaker, any resident or taxpayer that would like to address council.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, council members. Good evening. My name is Deborah Morto. I live at 1253 Wall Avenue, and I am on Pitcairn Council. I had a long speech,
Yeah, so,
but I'm not going to say it.
yeah, Mr. Dick was here earlier representing Pitcairn. I'm not sure if you were here at the time or not.
I was here.
Okay.
May I just emphasize the little part that goes up Pitcairn Road that they want to, that's marked as conservation land, would also roll up underneath the part of fracking. And that is right below where you just installed that whole ball fields and the soccer fields up off of Tilbrook. So I'm sure some of your children and grandchildren do play there. I just really hope that you keep the residents in Pitcairn.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your time. And happy Easter to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll leave the floor open.
Hi. How are you?
Welcome. If you state your name for the record.
My name's Kimberly Klein, 595 6th Street, and I do live in Pitcairn. I know I'm not up here,
Yeah, so.
but I'm a resident, and I just want to say
You're
once,
not a resident of Monroeville.
I'm a resident of Pitcairn my whole life.
Correct, yeah, this is for public comment for
And-
Monroeville
okay.
taxpayers. Yeah, but if you want to,
I know what you said, but I really do believe that you should let us speak.
This is our public forum. We follow the rules of the Sunshine Act laid for by Title 65 of the Pennsylvania
I get it.
Code. And we want to follow all of that. So this is for Monroeville residents and taxpayers only. The one exception was the governing body of the adjacent community was able to speak. But other Pitcairn residents cannot. But I would encourage you, if you do have concerns, you can email them to me or Mr. Little. We'll make sure all council has those concerns.
Do you have a card within,
And he can email you. So I'll leave the floor open for any Monroeville resident who'd like to address council.
but you are affecting us residents if you do this. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Jeff Bastian, Monroeville resident. I've pretty much lived in Monroeville my whole life. Grew up in Garden City, moved away for about 3 years over to Chalfont, and now I'm living in Monroe Heights in Ward 1. So, a lot of things have been covered. I'm happy to hear that this is the first of possibly many hearings on this. So that was one of the things I was going to ask. I don't really think I need to go over really more of the ill effects that we know about fracking, and it's something we can discuss later. But what I do want to kind of keep in mind as we're going through this and crafting possible zones is just to kind of look at like the recent history of even just our immediate area and the impacts that this type of industry has had here. So I remember in Boys Park, where our citizens regularly visit, sometimes every day, there was a mine fire that burned in there for 40 years that threatened the park structures and was even at risk to opening up sinkholes. As a kid playing in the woods in Garden City, all back there, someone else had mentioned all the mines that are riddled through Garden City. I remember being told to stay out of the Orange Creeks because that was harmful mine runoff. More recently, the strip mall on Northern Pike, where that liquor store is, was shut down for a long time because it was compromised by a mine underneath it. And it stood there for 50 years. No one ever thought anything was wrong with it, right? Until one day it was suddenly unsafe. I don't know how much it cost to stabilize that land, but someone had to pay for that. So there was an economic loss to those businesses and also a tax revenue loss to the municipality because of these effects that happen years down the road after the industry has already left. And no one can be held accountable for this. So it becomes the current community and property owners to take care of what's left behind. I use these, So, as I mentioned, I moved back to Monroeville a few years ago. And when we were looking at homes, we were looking in Monroeville, Murraysville, Penn Trafford. And we walked away from a few homes in those areas because the wells were so safe or so close to residential areas. And we didn't want to have our kids grow up next to that. We wanted them to be in a healthy, clean air, clean water environment. We didn't want to worry about losing our property value because of something we couldn't control because of something that was happening nearby. We didn't want to be stirred by loud noises and lights that are on. Like right now, I'm in that valley people are talking about by the Sheets, and we hear that gun range going all the time. So I couldn't imagine what drilling would sound like echoing through that valley. So I really think it's a competitive advantage for Monroeville to try to limit fracking as much as possible, because I know it attracted me back to the municipality and made Monroeville trump Murraysville and Penn Trafford areas, because I knew I didn't really have to worry about this. So this zoning's a little, concerning. So I hope these things are just taken into consideration. I think we can use it to our advantage to make Monroeville stronger. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I submit this?
Hi, my name is Jillian Graber. I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Protect PT. We have,
Are you a Monroeville resident?
I'm not, but we have several members that are Monroeville residents.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can submit,
I would like to submit my comment then.
you can submit that, absolutely.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is for public comment for residents only.
Okay, should I give it to the,
To the stenographer is fine. Thank you. I'll leave the floor open for any Monroeville resident that would like to address council on this zoning ordinance, the proposed draft of the zoning ordinance. Seeing none, we're gonna close that public hearing. Once again, this is in draft form. There's a lot.